Hey guys, welcome to a very important class. Today, we're going to talk about grammar. I know it is your favorite topic, and this is why we're going to start with prepositions. Then, we're going to talk about some basic grammar rules. And of course, we're going to talk about articles. Is it a or is it the? We're going to talk about that. And we're going to wrap up this class by talking about tenses in English. So, if you're learning English, this class is for you. Let's start. When I first arrived in the U.S., I was super confused about some prepositions like, am I at the farmer's market or in the farmer's market? My billboard was on Times Square or in Times Square. Am I at the hotel or am I in the hotel? These prepositions are very confusing, but first of all, whichever preposition you decide to use, native speakers are going to understand you. No one's going to tell you, no, this is the wrong preposition. Like if you're talking to native speakers normally, no one would tell you that something is wrong. But if you're taking a test, yes, this is where problems might start, because this is where you will get lower points if you make mistakes. So let's start with prepositions in English. Okay, let's start with at versus in. The rule that you have to remember, in is used with major big things like countries, cities, and continents. I was born in Europe. Well, St. Petersburg is kind of Eastern Europe. I consider it Europe. He was born in Italy. He was born in Rome. I was born in Liverpool, in a railroad switch house. We use at with smaller, insignificant places. So, I'm at the farmer's market because the farmer's market is relatively small. Same with buildings. I'm at the airport. I'm going to meet you at the restaurant. With small, insignificant things, we're using at work, at the university, at the stadium, at security guard. The next set of rules is regarding all versus all of. We use all of when we have pronouns. Pronouns are us, they, them, me, you, and those. These are all pronouns. So, we say, all of us are going to Malibu next week. All of them have completed their TOEFL test. So, whenever it's a pronoun, we have all of. All of me, however, in all other cases, we have all. All the people are forced to stay at home. All the students have to wear masks. All the children need to stay at home. All the gods, all the heavens. By the way, the next section is in versus on versus at when we're talking about time. So, when we talk about general measurements like, I'll be there in 2 minutes, I'll see you in 2 days, we're going to travel abroad in 2 months. So, in is used with general measurements. I'll be there in 20 minutes. However, when we have a specific date and time, we use on and at. I will see you on Monday at 12 p.m. The classes start on September 21st. I'll go now, if I may. We'll see you on Friday. And remember that in is also used with a year. I was born in 1990. He will come back in 2025. That was in 1994. Beside versus besides. So, beside is a preposition that means nearby. We were camping beside the river. We were camping on the shore, right? We're really close to the river, and we're camping there beside the white chickens. Besides is an adverb and preposition that means in addition to. Besides, we need your support in this venture. So, this is something you would start your sentence with. Besides 2 suitcases, I'm taking 3 boxes with me. So it means, in addition to my boxes, I'm taking my suitcases. You mean, besides my marriage. Among versus between. Among is used when you have a group of objects or people, usually 3 or more. She is very popular among her classmates. She's a very popular girl, right? I can choose among all your t-shirts. You have like 30 in your closet. Oh my God, among our homes. Between is when you have 2 objects. I can't decide between going to the cinema and staying at home. Between us. On versus upon. They're actually interchangeable. You can use both, but upon is really formal and old-fashioned. Remember this. Once upon a time, there was this little girl who lived in the forest. Blah, blah. All the fairy tales will start like that. Put your book on the table. We would usually just use on in this context. To versus then. There are several words that can only be followed by to, and these words are senior, junior, prefer, prior, superior, inferior, preferable. He is senior to me in service, right? We're using to. I prefer coffee to tea. I like coffee more. He is superior to me in terms of grades, which means he's higher than me. Is Matthew superior to me? So with these, we use to. In other cases, we use than. He's better than me. She's more beautiful than me, etc. You're no better than he is. In versus into. We use in when we have a person, an animal, or an object located in a location. I was sitting in the classroom. He was in the house when the policeman came here. He is in your office. We use into in a sense of coming toward something. He came into my office. So, he was kind of entering a closed space and he was moving toward me. So, he came into my office. We're driving into the garage. So, this is this movement inside. Then we use into. Came into the store. For versus since. For measures a period. Since marks the start date. I've been vlogging for 5 years already. I've been blogging since 2014. It's actually 6. I've been following Lingua Marina. Wow, this is a great example for you to practice. Write this down below. 2 sentences. I've been following Lingua Marina for 2 years. I've been following Lingua Marina since 2018 when I first saw her video about TOEFL. By the way, guys, let me know when you first started watching me and why. What was that video that grabbed your attention and made you subscribe and made you follow me? This would be really useful for my future videos because I would make sure I produce more content that attracts people's attention. Please comment down below, and thank you so much for doing that, and thank you so much for practicing your English down in the comments below. Agree with versus agree to. Agree with is used for agreement with a person. I agree with you. We need to practice English daily. I agree with our president that we need to support our economy. I agree with Dinesh. Read to is used for agreement to a plan, proposal, or idea. I agree to your proposal. Let's start a company together. I agree to your idea to share this video with all of my friends. You'll agree to anything. Now, let's talk about to versus for. The first thing that we're going to do, we're going to talk about when we use to. The first case when we use to is when we're talking about a destination. I am going to Germany at the end of April. I'm going to Munich, by the way. Or there's another example. We are going to a restaurant tonight. To a restaurant because this is a direction. I'm not going to back out of that. I want to go to Spain. Second case, if we're talking about time, and if we're talking in British English, what they love to say is, it's 1:45, which means 1:45. Like Americans? Well, I've never heard Americans say 1:45 or 1:20. And when I first heard it in Great Britain, I was a little confused, but they say that a lot. It's 1:45. Americans would say it's 1:45 because a quarter is 15 minutes. There is a second case of using to with time. For example, the restaurant is open from Monday to Friday. So we can kind of replace to with until, and this is another way to use it. So, for example, the address is open until 5 p.m., or the restaurant is open from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and this is when we use to. But I do Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 7 to 9. When we compare something, I prefer traveling to sitting at home. I prefer sleeping to working. I prefer watching Marina's videos to sitting by myself. I prefer metaphysics to theology. The next type of use is when we're talking about a receiver of an action. I gave my book to my follower. I sent a letter to my friend. I wrote an email to my colleague. Can you give it to me? And last but not least, when you want to express a reason for your action, I came here to see you. I did it to make more money. I've started learning English to get a job promotion. So, we're explaining why we've started doing something, and this is when we use to. I came to see you. Let's move on to talking about for. You see what I've just used? Let's move on to talking, because what it is, this is our direction. We're moving to the next section of our class. We're talking about for now. When we talk about benefits, we use for. So, for example, you're doing something for your health or for the benefit of being a parent. I bought a gift for my friend. I stopped eating gluten for the benefit of my health. Am I even getting for my health? For also indicates periods of time. I've been living in the U.S. for 4 years. I've been learning English for several months now. I've been watching Bookish English Channel for over 2 years, and I love her content. She's amazing. She's the best influencer out there. Oh, you are being modest. Also, when we talk about schedules, we use for. I made an appointment with my doctor for March 13th. March 13th is my birthday. I'd rather reschedule it for March 14th. Your flight is scheduled for May 31st. Again, we're talking about schedule. A hearing is scheduled for today. We also use for to express a reason. He was fired from his job for being constantly late. He has been late so many times, and he's been fired for that. Or she's been promoted for her good English because her English reached a certain level and she qualified for a promotion. We also use for to express the purpose of something. Marina creates videos for improving your English. You watch my videos for improving your language. I travel a lot for work. There are also cases when to and for can both be used. Let's talk about some examples so I can illustrate this better. Let's compare 2 examples. He's studying English for work. He is studying English to be able to talk to his American friends. So what we'll notice here is that we use for with a noun. He learns English for fun. He learns English for work. He learns English for his master's degree. But when we have a verb, we say to. He learns English to talk to his friends in the U.S. He learns English to get a job promotion. He learns English to study abroad. See the difference? Now let's move on to another example when both to and for can be used. My friend brought lunch to me. My friend brought lunch for me. Now both are correct, but they have slightly different meanings. My friend brought lunch to me. We're talking about direction. He brought lunch to my apartment, put it on my table, and I started eating. But when we say my friend bought lunch for me, we really want to emphasize that he's doing something nice for me. He thought about me when he was getting lunch, so he got one for me. Apologize can be used with both to and for. You apologize for something that you've done. I apologize for breaking your cup. I apologize for this video being too short. But you apologize to someone. I apologize to you for this video being too short. I apologize to my friend for forgetting about her birthday. I apologize for the language. Travel to and travel for. I traveled to Russia. I traveled to Paris. I traveled to Germany, but I travel for work. I traveled to Russia for Lingua Fest, which is a festival. I travel to Germany for meetings. You see, for is for the reason, to is for the destination. Because you must travel to France immediately and put that directly into the hands of the king and him alone. Men can travel for work. Families unite, wait for all, wait for someone or something. I'm waiting for the concert tonight. I am waiting for my dad to come and visit us in California. But you wait to do something. I cannot wait to see my family in Russia. Or I cannot wait to travel this summer. I cannot wait to show you this. When we use ask, we normally use for. Ask for something. Can I ask you for a cup of tea, please? Can I ask you for a favor? Don't ask for permission. Ask for forgiveness. When we talk about belonging, we normally say to. It belongs to me. It belongs to you. Never belongs for. So don't say that she belonged to me. When we say care, we care for somebody. I care for my dog. I care for Alex. I care for my family. You care for him. And last but not least, when we're saying prepare, we always say prepare for something. I will need to prepare for the festival. Let's do a quick quiz. He lives 13 Long Street, and you have to select either in, on, or at. I'm visiting my grandma on and at a hospital. I like traveling to and at a train. Now, you're going to get the right answers at the end of this video, but make sure you write your answers down so you can check yourself later. Now, let's talk about some rules. The first rule is when we use at. At is used with a very exact place, like a small building, something that is small. You would always use at the door, at the hospital, at school, at the university, at the table, at the door. So, something specific would always be at. But when you're thinking about big things, like Panama, or Guatemala, or St. Petersburg, or London, you would never say at. Because at only applies to smaller things. And London, Panama, Guatemala, those huge geographical locations. So you can be at London, you're in London. In London? Yeah, but I'm at the desk, I'm at home, I'm at my studio, I am at the bus stop, etc. At this university, at the door, at school. We use on with streets and avenues. I live on Park Avenue, on North Avenue, I live on Green Street. So on is always with the street. But please remember, there are always exceptions. Like if you're talking about a university and you're talking about campus, you say, I live on campus. On campus is the location where you have your dorms, your classes, your restaurants, cafeterias, etc. So, on campus would be an exception. But normally, on is only used with streets. Now, when we're talking about the street, there's another thing to remember. When we have a number, then we use at. I live at 13 Green Street at 45 Dunstan Street. But when we don't have a number, like if I'm asking, where are you right now? And you're answering, I'm on Market Street. You don't give me a number, and the news is on Green Street. So at is used when we give the full address, street number, etc., and on is when we just mention the street. And when we talk about something bigger than the street, we use the preposition in. So for example, you have different parts of town. We are having lunch in Chinatown, or we are having lunch in Nob Hill. This is like a district here in San Francisco. With cities, as I already mentioned, I live in London, I live in London, I live in New York. We have been in New York for 2 weeks. We are in Los Altos Hills. With states, I live in California, I live in California. With parts of countries, my friends spent vacation in the south of India. With countries, I used to live in Russia. In Russia, with continents, my sister is in Africa. I love being in Africa. So, to sum things up, we use at with specific locations, on with less specific locations, like streets, and in with bigger locations like cities, towns, countries, parts of countries. If you're already feeling overwhelmed with what's going on, and we haven't yet started the most interesting part of the video, where I'm going to explain more things about prepositions, I would highly recommend a book called Grammar is All You Need. It is produced by my company called Lingual Trip, by certified teachers. This is a handbook that covers all the necessary topics in English grammar. And it has a chapter on prepositions. It has a chapter on tenses, a chapter on grammar rules. And it's not just rules. We all get bored by those boring textbooks. In this book, just like in all of my videos, we try to come up with different life hacks so you could understand everything better. And also, it's not just you reading the material. We have included a lot of exercises so you could practice things. Because with grammar, it's like if you just watch this video and you switch it off and you don't practice, it just goes away. Like, well, there is something in the back of your mind, but it really goes away. And because you're watching this video, first of all, you're getting 66% off of this workbook. And second, you get a free chapter on prepositions. I really want you to remember these prepositions that we learned. So if you follow the link below, you're going to be able to receive a free chapter and 66% off the Grammar is All You Need workbook. This workbook has 16 chapters on the most important topics of English grammar, done by my company, done by Lingual Trip, with love, with passion for you guys, with passion for English. Again, the link is in the description below. 66% off, and a free chapter on English prepositions, something that we cover in this video so you can practice. You can print it out, put it on your desk, and never ever forget what's the right way to use prepositions in English. The link is below. Now, let's move a little further with our prepositions. I gave you some basic rules, but now we're going to explore more examples. In is also used when we are talking about an enclosed space, something that has a roof, something that has walls, in a car, in a box, in a building. I am waiting for you in my car. They're in a car. Can you please help me find a pen in this box? In a box, don't put your wallet in a pocket. Now listen carefully. Right now, we're moving to on. We use on with a bus. On a bus. And you might ask, Marina, but why in a car but on a bus? Wait a minute, I'm going to explain. The other words that we use on with are words that represent surfaces, like, this table is a surface, on a table. Your floor is a surface, on the floor. The wall behind me is also a surface, on the wall. We also use on when we talk about left and right. On the left, on the right. Oh, vice versa, depending on whatever you see. I think it's on the left foot. You're on the right for you. Next, to or along the side of a river, for example. Cambridge is on the River Cam. Now, interesting fact, why in a car but on a bus? It's used with means of transportation where you can't stand up. Oh my God, English, you're so complicated. You can stand up in a car, so you say in a car. You can't stand up in a helicopter, but you can stand up on an airplane. So, on an airplane, in a helicopter, on a bus, in a car, on the bus, in a car, in a taxi. Because you can't stand up in a taxi. I know, guys. This is why I recommend having something like a grammar book so you can refer to things, or at least have a script of this video in front of your eyes. On a ship, on a boat, on a plane, on a train. We use on with a means of transport where we can stand up. We can stand up on a plane. We can stand up on a bus. We can stand up on a boat. And also, maybe another hint. We use on with a means of transportation where there is no roof. On a horse, on a boat. Boats don't have a roof normally. You can have both, but on a boat, so normally you don't have a roof on top of you when you're on the upper deck. On a bike, you can't really stand up on a bike, but it doesn't have a roof, so it's on a bike, on your bike, on a boat. Another thing that can be super confusing for you guys. Sometimes you hear in a hospital, and sometimes you hear at a hospital. Both of those are grammatically correct, but guess what? They have a different meaning. So, when you're saying, I'm in a hospital, that means you're a patient. You're actually receiving treatment. I don't remember the accident. I just remember waking up in a hospital. My uncle is in the hospital right now, receiving treatment for his acne. I don't know if you go to the hospital for that, but he broke his leg. He's in a hospital. Let's do that. I'm giving birth in a hospital, but you can also say, I'm at the hospital, and that would mean that you're just doing something there, that you're not a patient. I am visiting my uncle at the hospital, because you're at the hospital, not as a patient receiving treatment. You're a guest visiting your uncle. In college, my brother volunteered at a local hospital. Again, he wasn't a patient. This is why we use at the hospital. The same goes for school, museum, library, or any other institution. And we also use at with events. I'm at this Lady Gaga concert. Okay, guys, I hope it wasn't super confusing for you. Again, if you want to make sure you remember all the prepositions, make sure to follow the link below and download the free chapter of the grammar book. And if you feel like you're willing to invest in your education just a little sum of money, using 66% off the grammar book will be even cheaper for you because you're watching this video. Now, let's check your test. I guess you already know everything, but let's do it anyway. He lives at 13 Long Street because we give the full address. We give the number and the street address. I'm visiting my grandma at the hospital. Why? Because I'm not a patient. She's a patient. My grandma is in the hospital receiving treatment, and I'm visiting her at the hospital because I am not a patient. I like traveling on a train. You can also say, I love traveling by train. But this is another topic for another video. Here, because we remember that we can stand up on the train, we use on. I like to travel on a train. This class is going to be about basic grammar, something that you should have learned way back at school. You might have forgotten basic grammar, but this is why I am here, because we're going to talk about really important things. Parts of speech, noun, pronoun, verb. What does that mean? Basic tenses that you have to know. And third is word order. And if you watch this video up to the very end, if you understand the concepts, if you learn them, there's a 99% chance that you would be able to speak English at a level where you can explain what you need, explain what you're doing for life, or even work with people. Because what we're going to talk about creates the foundation for your language. So please, make sure you listen carefully. Let's do it. First of all, let's talk about parts of speech. We have nouns. These are our objects or subjects. Cat, dog, mom, table. These are all nouns. Pronouns. These are words that substitute a noun to avoid repetition. Cat, he, dog, let's say she, mom, she, table, it. Then, if we have plural, they, we, etc. Verb, we use verbs to express actions. Go, read, eat. Adjective. Now here, listen carefully. Adjectives are used to describe nouns, because we're going to talk about adverbs later, and those are used to describe actions or adjectives. This is where it gets a bit complicated. But I really want you to understand the difference between adjectives and adverbs because sometimes you use them in the wrong way. I use them in the wrong way sometimes, but we want to be grammatically correct. So an adjective is used to describe nouns or pronouns, right? We use adjectives to answer questions like, which one? What kind of? How many? How much? And the examples are old, new, beautiful, smart, etc. Adverbs describe actions, right? Adverbs answer questions like when, where, how, and very often adverbs end with lie, like fully, slowly, but not always. Fast is also an adverb. Finally, now fast can be both an adjective and an adverb. If we look at a couple of examples, he is fast. We use fast to describe a pronoun, then it's an adjective. But if we say, he runs really fast, we're actually describing a verb, and in this case, it's an adverb, just so you know. Then we have our prepositions. We place a preposition before a noun to modify the phrase about, above, across, on, etc. Conjunctions. This is a joining word that we use to connect sentences or different parts of one sentence. But, and however, after, although, etc. And the last but not least, articles, a and the. I know that you mix them up. If you do mix them up, I have a video explaining how not to mix them up. A or an and the. Basically, we use a or an to mention a thing that we haven't talked about before. For example, there is a mug on my desk. But if I'm talking about one particular mug that I've already mentioned in the conversation, I would say, there is black tea in the mug that I mentioned before. A lot of people are telling me, Marina, I want this one resource where I can go and answer all of my questions regarding English grammar. Or, Marina, can you recommend a book that I can have on my desk? And whenever I have a question, whenever I have an idea, oh my God, I want to learn this, I go to this spot. My team and we're going to talk about 3 tenses: present, past, and future. Some people would argue these 3 tenses are enough to speak English. They are kind of enough, but of course, native speakers use all the tenses. That doesn't mean they understand the construction, because they learn everything as kids. But I'm going to explain the basic structure to you, because you know we're not native speakers and we don't have this advantage. Now, present simple tense is used to describe habits. For example, I drink coffee every morning. Schedules. The train leaves at 5 p.m. And general truths, ice is cold. One thing to remember is that in English there should always be a noun or a pronoun in a sentence, and there always should be a verb. So, for example, if we say, I drink coffee every morning, then the action is drink. Sometimes we don't have actions. Sometimes we just describe something, and in this case, ice is cold. The verb is. We use past tense to describe something that happened in the past. So basically, your verb gets either ed on the end, like I walked, or if it's an irregular verb, then you just have to learn it. She went home, he drank a glass of beer. And the future tense is, of course, used to describe our future. In this case, we just put will before a verb. She will come back. Let's talk about word order in a sentence in English. First of all, we have a subject, which is a noun or pronoun. Then we have a verb or action. And then, if we need it, we have an object, which is normally a noun or pronoun as well. So, let me give you a quick example. She smiled at a boy. And then, if we need to describe our action with an adverb, remember adverbs describe verbs, we put it right before the verb. For example, she briefly smiled at a boy. So the adverb comes here. And then, if we have adjectives that describe a noun, then they come right before the noun. She smiled at a little boy. Of course, this rule is very basic. The more you learn, the better you become. There is one last thing I wanted to tell you. Don't make this mistake. Let's look at these 3 sentences. They often play tennis. Correct. They play tennis often. Also correct. They play often tennis. Incorrect. This is wrong because an adverb can never be put between a verb and an object. So this is wrong. Just remember, because this sounds a little weird. All right, guys, I have a question for you. Do you have articles in your language? My language is Russian, and in Russian, we don't have any articles. We don't say a, we don't say the, we don't say anything when we refer to nouns. It's just the noun, right? In English, we have articles, and my problem, and I still think I have it, is that I miss articles sometimes. Sometimes I just avoid them in general, just because they do not exist in my native language. And I remember when I was 16, and I thought I was like super advanced in English. When I came to the UK, my friend said, "You know, Marina, I understand everything that you're saying, but you are not using articles at all, and that makes you sound really weird to a native speaker." He was actually a really good friend, so he spent like an hour with me explaining all the articles. So, please do not forget about articles when you speak English. Let's talk about them, when and how you use them. There are two articles, a and the. We use a to talk about objects that we encounter for the first time in our speech, for the first time in this conversation. And we use the when we mean something specific. So let's start with the first rule. Something specific is always the. For example, Marina, where did you get the dress that you wore yesterday? This is a very specific dress. I only have one dress, and I'm pretty sure she means the dress that I was wearing yesterday, and that was the specific white dress, whatever. So, this is a very specific thing. But if I'm asking somebody, "Can you get me a dress when you go shopping?" I'm not asking for a particular dress. I just need a dress, and whatever dress you can find that suits me, just get it. So could you get me a dress when you go shopping? See the differences? In the first example, with the specific dress I wore yesterday, I meant that dress that I wore yesterday. When I'm asking to buy a random dress, this is a dress. Another thing to remember, we only use a when we talk about single objects. We cannot say a dresses. This is wrong, don't do that. But if a word starts with a vowel, a, e, o, u, we replace a with an. For example, an apple, an eggplant, an elephant. Another general rule. When you talk about something for the first time, you say a. When you mention it in your conversation for the second time, you use the. For example, yesterday. I went to a party. I mentioned it for the first time, but in the second sentence I would say, the party was amazing, because I've already stated that I will be talking about a specific party. And in the second sentence, I'm referring to that specific party, so it's the body now, okay? Or another example. Yesterday, I bought an apple, just a random apple. That apple turned out to be rotten, so I'm taking it back to the store today. Okay, so first, I'm not mentioning a particular apple. I just bought an apple. It doesn't matter which apple. It doesn't matter if it's big. It doesn't matter if it's small. Just an apple. But then, when I'm talking that it's rotten, I already mean that apple that's in my fridge, so the apple. Okay. However, if we're talking about an object that is one of a kind, we always use the moon, the sun, the Black Sea, the Simpsons. So, we know that there is only one of those. That's why we always say the moon. We know that there is one sun, so we say the sun. Again, we only know that there's just one family when we're talking about The Simpsons, right? This is the movie, so whatever. It's something one of a kind. It's the uncountable nouns. What are uncountable nouns? Porridge, oatmeal, milk, whatever you cannot count. Because when we're talking about porridge, you cannot really count all the seeds that are there. And when we're talking about milk, you cannot really count the cells. Yes, you can measure volume, but that's different. We're talking about counting. So, uncountable nouns means you cannot count them, right? So, with uncountable nouns, we don't use any articles. It's always, I like oatmeal. Can you get me some oatmeal? Can you make some porridge for breakfast? Use some. Can I have some milk? I drink milk for breakfast. The only way you would be able to count milk is by adding glasses. So, can you give me a glass of milk? And then you have a, okay? But this a refers to glass, not to milk. And the second scenario when we don't use an article is when we have plural countable nouns, bicycles, computers, cameras, bloggers. So whenever these words appear in a sentence, we do not use any articles. For example, I have 3 computers at home. I like watching bloggers. I love bicycles. But why are articles so confusing? Because there are always, always, always exceptions. For example, there is a store in your house, and they sell specific milk, and you want to highlight that you like the milk from that store because it's one of a kind. You really mean that milk, and you cannot get it anywhere else. Then you can say, "Oh my God, I love the milk from that store," because you're being specific. And again, I just mentioned that with milk we don't use any article, but we don't use the or a when we don't mention specific milk. We just mention milk as food, but if we mean some kind of milk that's only sold in a store that's 1 block away or in your house, you would say the. Same applies to countable nouns in plural forms. If that shop also sells apples that you love, you can say, "Oh, I love the apples from that store. They are the best in the world." And people will realize that you mean specific apples that are only sold there, and they're one of a kind. Okay, please remember that, and feel free, whenever you're watching this video, if it's confusing, feel free to stop. Feel free to open your exercise book, rewind the video, and write everything down again because I know it's super confusing. And I know even super advanced students make mistakes with articles. So, this topic is very important. It's crucial, but I'm here to help. There's a quite similar rule for abstract nouns. When you're talking about something in general, you don't need an article. For example, information on the internet is very useful. So, information is this abstract noun. You don't mean any specific information, you just mean the information that's available to everyone on the internet is very useful. But again, just to compare, when you use particular information that you receive, the information that I've read on Wikipedia regarding YouTube is super useful. Then you need to insert the definite article, the, because you mean some specific information. But when you're talking about information in general, you don't use articles at all. Okay, never use articles with proper nouns. Tuesday, Monday, New York. You can distinguish those proper nouns by the capital letter that they start with. New York is with capital letters, Washington, D.C., Russia, London, Tuesday, Monday, Wednesday, February, March. All of those nouns do not require an article. Okay, never use articles with the names of countries. Dmitri makes this mistake all the time, and I keep correcting him. Russia, France, Monaco, all of those countries do not require an article. But, of course, there are exceptions to this rule. If a country's name consists of several words like the United Kingdom, because that refers to kingdom here, or the United States of America, so whenever the name consists of several nouns, you use the. Also, no articles when you speak about languages. And remember, at the beginning of this video, I asked you to write a comment below about what language you speak and if you have articles in that language. So you can say, I speak French, and there is no article. I speak Russian, and there are no articles in Russian. So we don't have any article before the name of the language. And the last but not least, when you're talking about meals, don't use articles. I've already had lunch today. I've already had breakfast. Let's head out to dinner. But again, we're just talking about non-specific meals. Just, stating that we had a meal. But if you want to say that you are sick from the dinner you had yesterday, then you need the definite article because you mean that specific dinner. We probably ate sushi, and you got food poisoning. So, when you mean a specific dinner, it would probably be something in the past. You use the. So, articles are very confusing. And as an English language learner, I think I have worked and learned about them maybe like 10 times in my life. I just keep coming back to this. I think, of course, it's a matter of practice, but this repetition, constant repetition of a topic that is confusing for you, I think it's really helpful for you as an English language learner. If you want another class from me on articles, please let me know in the comments down below, and I will be happy to make another video. And now, let's move on to another topic that is kind of endless in English, and the topic is tenses. Today, I'm going to teach you which terms to use when you see certain words in the sentence. We call them marker words. So sometimes you see them, and you're like, oh, when people use this word, they would typically use this particular tense, and I'm going to teach you those words. So if you're interested, continue watching. Before I start, quick disclaimer. English evolves all the time. Yes, there are grammar rules, and for some tenses, especially like present perfect, if a test taker creates a sentence for you, puts one of those marker words in that sentence, there's like a 99% chance they want you to use present perfect because they want to know whether you've learned those words by heart. But when you talk to a native speaker, when you're in this relaxed environment, people use these words with other tenses as well. So there is no 100% guarantee. If you see one of the words that I've mentioned, they use it with that particular tense. But if it's a test, I would say it's like a 90% plus guarantee that you should use this particular tense. But I would always look at the context. Okay? So, you see the word, and then you look at the context. We'll explain when we use certain tenses. So, always pay attention to the context. Let's start with the simplest tense ever, present simple. Present simple is a tense that is used for regular actions, something that happens to you every day, every night, every month, something that you do regularly, and also for some things that are pre-scheduled, like the airplane arrives at 5 p.m. The marker words for this tense usually include every day, every week. So whenever you see every, that's probably present simple. Often, seldom, or the synonym for it is really, and really is more American. For actions that don't happen too often, always, never, sometimes, as a rule, hardly ever. Hardly ever is like very, very rarely. Hardly ever do I get 12 hours of sleep per night. Today on Sunday, from time to time, I go to the swimming pool. From time to time. We have right now because that's present perfect. For past simple, think of it as telling a story about something that happened to you last year in 1994. So you're just describing a series of actions or just one action or something that you were doing back then. So just think of it this way. You are describing something that happened to you, something you did a year ago, 2 years ago, etc. Yesterday, the day before yesterday, last week, month, year, etc. Whenever you see last, that's really past simple. A goal is also a great marker word. So whenever you see a goal, again, 90% plus, it's going to be past simple. A week ago, a month ago, a year ago, the other day, which means on one of the days that have passed. In 1994 or any year in the past, once upon a time, there lived an elephant in Africa. When? And you would insert something in the past, like at 3 o'clock yesterday or at 3 o'clock the day before yesterday. That day, by the way, guys, if you want these words written down, something that you can print out, something that you can have in front of you on your desk, we have created a memo for you where we have all of those marker words. You also have a test, which is divided by certain levels of English, so you can check where you're at right now with your tenses. There is also a table that describes how to build different tenses, and there's also a table with irregular verbs. Remember, we're talking about past simple right now. When we're talking in the past, a verb goes into the second form, and there are regular verbs like I walked in the park, I published this video. But there are also irregular verbs like I put my phone on the table yesterday, I drove 5 miles an hour. Irregular verbs are formed in a different way. It's not just putting a D at the end. It is something else. And we have created a table for you with these verbs and also how to learn them easily. There is a small fee to download this table. It's a $1 fee just to support our designers and us. So it's me and Vanya who created this table, and also my team. The link is below. You're going to have it all in front of you. You can have all the words, so you can just print them out, hang them in front of you, and always have them in front of your eyes. So whenever you have questions, you can just refer to that memo. By the way, in this video, I'm going to talk about all the 12 tenses. We're going to talk about present simple, past simple, future simple, present progressive, and present perfect. But in the table, we have more tenses. We have 7 tenses in total. In terms of this marker words, future simple talks about future actions. And something for you to remember, future simple is when you're not 100% sure about something. For example, you have an appointment with your friend and he says, I will come in an hour. So that means he's 90% sure that he will come in an hour. Maybe he won't come because he can't control other people. But if you have an airplane that leaves at 5 p.m., you see, I'm already using present simple. So when it's something that you're 100% sure of, it's present simple. It's like for timetables, opening schedules and stuff. The store opens at 9 a.m. The store closes at 9 p.m. That's all present simple. But when we're talking about actions we're not sure about, like 90%, well, we are sure 90%, but we're still kind of guessing, that's future simple. And the marker words are tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, next week, month, year, etc. In an hour, in a second, in a minute, etc. In the 22nd century, soon, later, someday, and someday meaning someday in the future, in a day, in a week, in 5 years. So whenever you see in plus a time frame, and according to the context you're 100% sure, that's future simple. In the future, one of these days. Present progressive, and in British English, you would call it present continuous. Depends on the textbook you're using, but it's pretty much the same. In America, we would say present progressive or present continuous. The tense is used to describe something that is happening right now. So, the first marker word is obviously now. Right now, at the moment, today. Other marker words: look, listen. Like, for example, if you're trying to pay somebody's attention, something like, look, they are fighting. We need to stop them. We are paying somebody's attention to an action that's happening right now. Still, they are still fighting at this very moment. Currently, these days, this week, this month, this year, constantly. I'm constantly hearing sirens when I'm recording videos in this apartment because we're very close to the center and something is constantly going on. You see how I'm using this constantly and stuff. And the last, but not the least, we're going to talk about present perfect. And I know you mix it with past simple very often. So, present perfect focuses. It's a present tense, okay? It's not a past tense because it's present perfect, and it focuses on the result you have right now. Come on, guys. Present perfect is a present tense. It focuses on the result that you have right now. It does not focus on the details of a past action, because for that we have past simple. For results right now, we have present perfect. So, for example, I have eaten. This means that you're not hungry. If you're kind of translating or explaining, if you say, I ate pizza yesterday for lunch, that means you're telling a story about what happened yesterday. You're not really focusing on something that you have right now. This is a way for you to determine which tense to use, and the marker words, of course. Like for this tense marker words that you've probably learned at school. Ever, never, just, already, yet. Whenever you see them on the test. Oh my God, I think that's like 95%, 97% chance that the test takers want to test you on whether you've learned those marker words or not. Ever, never, just, already, yet, recently, lately, greatly means you've started doing something recently. Again, I've started walking every night lately. Before, always, so far, At last. It's the first time. It's the first time since we've known each other. All my life, all morning. About English students' least favorite tense, which is present perfect, because it is so confusing. I was taught at school that present perfect is a past tense, which is not because if we look at its name, it says present perfect, which means that yes, we're talking about our actions in the past, but their result is still here with us in the present. This is why it's present perfect. It's a present tense, and it's really important not to mix it up with a past tense. It's really important to use it in the right way. So today, we're going to talk about present perfect. One of the most important things to remember about present perfect is that we don't really care when exactly something happened. For example, I say, I've lost my keys. I don't really care if I lost them yesterday. I don't really care if I lost them a week ago. I care about the result. I've lost my keys and I can't get into my house. This is the result. And so it doesn't matter when exactly the action happened. It matters that the result is still here. It's my present. I can't get into my house. The way we form this tense is that we use either have or has. I have, you have. They have, we have. It, she, he has. After that, we use our verb in the third form. And here, please pay attention. We have regular verbs where the third form is the same as the second and is easily formed by adding ed. For example, play, played, stop, stopped. And we have irregular verbs that you have to learn. Run, ran, run, bring, brought, brought, rise, rose, risen. So, we use the third form, and please remember that some regular verbs actually change the way they're written. For example, say, said, said. We get rid of the y in the second and third form and add ied, study, studied, studied. So, just pay attention to the spelling of those words. So we have has or have. We have a verb in the third form, and if it's a regular verb, we add ed. If it's an irregular verb, we just learn the third form. Very often, we have a word that tells us that we have to use present perfect, ever, never, since, already, yet. Remember what I told you. We don't really care about the exact timing of an action. So, whenever you have a year ago, in 1990, in March 2015, that means you would probably need to use past simple because, again, in present perfect, we don't care about the exact point in time. We don't care about the exact day or exact year. We just care about the result. For example, I have never eaten pizza in my life. The result is that if I try pizza, it's going to be something new for me. I've never eaten a taco. I've been to Great Britain once. That means if I go now, it wouldn't be a new country for me. But it doesn't really matter whether I've been to Great Britain in 2015 or 2020. In this case, we would use past simple, since I've been to Italy many times. Also, when you are taking your TOEFL test, when you're taking your IELTS test, or whatever test that you're taking, please do not contract your verbs. Don't say, I've been there. Don't write, I've been there. Please say and write, I have been there. This is formal, academic English, and this is what's required from you when you're taking a formal test or when you're writing a formal essay. Of course, when you're chatting with your friends, your classmates, when you're recording a video on YouTube or watching my videos, you're free to comment below. Oh my God, I was scared by the slaps. When you're commenting on this video, you can totally contract your verbs and say, I've been there. I've enjoyed this video so much. I've learned so much from this video. Marina, you're an amazing teacher. You are being too modest. So, feel free to contract below this video, but please don't use contractions when you are taking an academic test. The negative form in this tense is formed by adding not. For example, I have not done this. I have not seen this before.